Hey guys, it's Livy. Welcome back to a new video on my channel. I want to address my new intro. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. Every single sound, picture, like music, whatever that I use is all credited in the description of this video, and I will be doing that for all my other videos just because I think it's nice to give credit. Although I did make it myself, I do want to give credit to the resources I used. Also, I hope you all had an amazing Christmas and New Year. This is my first video of 2025. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my TBR for 2025. If you don't know what TBR means, I think it means to be read. I'm not that well educated in like the whole book community, if that makes sense. Little disclaimer is that I'm not really a big reader. Now, obviously, I enjoy reading, like, I do love it, but what I mean by I'm not a big reader is that I'm a slow reader. Just for reference, in the summer, I dedicated a whole week to reading a book without doing anything else, without going on my phone. The only time I stopped reading was to eat or sleep, and I still didn't finish the book in the whole week. Like, I finished it in like the second week of September, just for reference. And I think the reason why I read really slow is because I actually want to enjoy the book. Like, I see reading as an enjoyable activity where I can go into the stories of other people and not as one of those people who are like, oh my god, I've read 50 books this month. Like, I just don't think reading should be like that. Reading is meant to be enjoyed, like a competition of how many books you can read in a certain amount of time. I'm going to go straight into the first book that I want to read this year. It is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Now, as you can see here with this little bookmark, I've already started reading the book, but I just sort of forgot about it. Like, I read it in the first few weeks of December while I was at school, and I went into the Christmas holidays. I sort of didn't read any of it, so my goal is to finish this book. I will be counting this whole book in my TBR because I've only read like a tiny bit of it. Yeah, so far from what I've read, it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. I don't want to give any spoilers, obviously, so this is the first thing I'm going to want to be reading, and I'll probably start this today. Obviously, that's the first thing I want to read, but the rest of the stuff won't be in any particular order, just because I don't want to be like, I'm definitely reading this book. It's just going to be based off how I feel. Section 1 is historical books. The first historical book is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Now, I watched the film and I read this book in school in year 8. However, I just want to reread it because it's obviously a very sad story, but I'm like obsessed with history, and like, if you know me, I love it so much. So I want to do as much as I can just to like become more educated, if that makes sense. We already know what's happened, like I know the whole story, but it's just nice to read more historical books. The next historical book, sort of in the same theme, is The Diary of Anne Frank. I did actually buy this book over a year ago, and I already sort of know her story, but I haven't actually read a book of her diary, so this should be exciting. Probably going to be really sad, so that's that, but I'm really excited to read this because, like I said, I want to become more educated in historical events. Next historical book, I have no clue what this is about, but from reading the back, it says One Hot Day in Elizabethan York. Like, I love the Elizabethan era, so I want to read that. The Memory of Midnight. So it goes through like a backstory of something that happened in Elizabethan York, and then I think it goes to the modern day. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm counting this in the historical section. Once I finish reading this book, it might end up being a history book. I don't really know, but I'm excited to read this one because, like I said, I love the Elizabethan era. Next two books, I actually got these both for Christmas. Now, I don't really know if they should be like historical or fantasy. I've honestly got no idea, but it is the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. I don't really know that much about Greek mythology, so I'm gonna research about it more, and like I don't know how to say it, like the Trojan, I don't know that word, and the Trojan War. So I'm gonna research stuff about that before I read these. And I don't know if they're real or not. Like, I don't listen to anything I say about these books until I finish reading them and research about Greek mythology and stuff like that, but I am excited to read these. I heard that they're like a long poem, so that should be interesting. Don't really have much to say about these books other than I'm excited to read them, and I'm excited to learn about Greek mythology. Another book I want to read is Radio Silence. I read Solitaire last summer. That's the book I was referring to at the start of this video. I already put this thing here because I actually read like one page of it like after I finished reading Solitaire, but then I sort of like just didn't read anymore. Excited to read this one. It is quite a big book, like I'm not gonna lie to you. It's got literally 400 pages, but this should be exciting. I think it's in the Heartstopper universe, and in the summer I had a massive Heartstopper obsession. Like, I was literally watching a whole 2 series like in a day for like a week straight because I was just so obsessed with it. I actually buy Radio Silence and Solitaire like together in the summer, so I'll be excited to read this. Next book I want to read is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Now this was the first book I ever brought. Like I literally brought it when it came out because I followed the writer on TikTok who was like writing the book and stuff. I think it was like 2021, I'm not exactly sure. It was released in 2023, but I was like watching her TikToks in 2021 and stuff of her writing it. I literally brought this as soon as it came out. I was so excited to read it. I read like a few pages in year 9, then I just sort of didn't, because like the start, I read like I think the first chapter and then I just obviously forgot about it all because I read it nearly 2 years ago now. I actually want to read this whole book because that would be good to read. It's fantasy and romance books. I don't really like romance books too much just because like I think romance is overrated, honestly. But we will see how this goes. All I'm saying is I hope there is no smut. I'm not exactly sure if there is. But if there is, I will be crying because I read Twisted Love like this time last year. I was absolutely traumatized. I thought it was going to be love, not pure trauma to my 14-year-old mind. Last category of books is more like horror, mystery. That is my absolute favorite. History and like horror or crime, my favorite things ever. So The Parents of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. If you can see in my background, I've read all the Good Girls Guide to Murder books. This one, as you can see, is a bit battered because I did bring it to school and I read the first few chapters when it came out. But like I said, I just stopped reading it. I actually got quite through it. I read like that much, so I will just restart the whole thing because it's been nearly a year since it came out, I think. It came out in like April last year. Read the whole thing. Honestly, it's not an issue. I probably forgot what's happened in it anyway. Yeah, I love horror, mystery, crime, thriller, that whole genre. Really interests me. 2 more books I want to read this year. This one is Shot in the Dark by Anna Britton. Seems very horror vibes. Obviously I don't know what it's about because I haven't read it yet, but on the back it just says run, so I'm liking that whole vibe already. Might be the first book I read after The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo because I really want to read this one so badly. Final book I want to read this year is Livid by Patricia Cornwell. I haven't been going through the authors' names for all the books, but when I edit I'll put the authors' names like in a little text, so you don't need to worry about that. Book, obviously the back says Murder and Mayhem. Scarpetta is back and she's racing against the clock. Like I said, I love that whole vibe. So to summarize, this is 11 books I want to read this year. I know that's not a lot, and obviously I'm not restricted to just reading these books. Like say I finish them all in like October and I'm like I want to read another, I'm not just gonna be like no, I'm not gonna read that, set myself up for these books. But at the end of the year I'm hoping to do like a review of all the books I read, so I'll go through all these books in depth, say what they're like. Obviously I won't do any spoilers. I'm hoping next week's video is a mock results video. That's if I get them all back when I go back to school. Most of them back and I've written them on my whiteboard, but I still haven't got my history, geography or science results back. Hoping to get them back when I go back to school. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please like and subscribe because I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all in next week's video.